Test one, two. All right. All right. There we go. I think, make sure. All right. With it, I don't know. I guess the signal. All right. I try to do this live stream. Um, I was trying to go to live stream over 30 minutes, and I guess I got a couple comments, but I'm back again. I switched out the interface because wasn't sure if this interface was putting out right signal, but um if you're there, if you came, if you got a notice that I'm back live again, just start posting comments. Um, said I can't really see. Okay, the signal looks good. Um, the signal looks good. Yeah, everything looks, but just you can never tell if you people can hear. Because I sometimes people say that my lot it's low. Other people say it's too. It's fine. Not sure. So maybe the other one was, yeah, this one just seems like the volume. Um, I'm not sure. Well, anyhow, I'm just gonna go on with it. All right. Well, anyhow, that's like I said, I switched out. Um, it seemed like the volume level on this. I'll kind of tell you what I was um kind of using and why I wanted to use it simply because it has an EQ, but it was basically this mixer was a USB mixer because you can use it as a USB and also as a because it got the preamp, but also as a USB audio. You can use it as an audio interface, but it seemed like the volume would be good for a second, and then the volume would, you know, drop low. Wasn't sure, so I'm just gonna roll with it. And I'm just gonna. I know it's a short notice again. Test one, two. Yeah, the volume levels look better here. Okay, than the other one. Anyhow, I'm just gonna roll with it. So let me untangle. Okay. Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, I was trying to. Yeah, if you can see me now, and if you wonder why I was live and it went away, and it was live and it went away, I was switching my interface out. Because it seemed like the volume would be good, then the volume would go low. So I switched to a different interface for now. I just don't feel like. I guess I'm being lazy. I could always hook up a mic pre, run it through a mic preamp, then run it through the antelope interface, and then run into the. I don't feel like doing all that because I turn on the gear, and I don't want to do that just for a live stream chat. So, anyhow, um, I was actually prompted to make this video because I want to talk about gear again. And the reason why I want to talk about gear, and it's not to be hypocritical, um, because this is the reason why I do have a few expensive pieces of gear, and the gear that I have that's pretty expensive. Well, I would say it's probably a little bit more pricier than the average home user is because these are areas where I don't want a shortcut. Number one, my Antelope interface, $3,200 interface. Naturally, your two microphone preamps. Um, I do have some lower cost microphone preamps, but I always when I buy before I buy preamps, I always go and listen to reviews to listen to how these preamps sound. I.e., I was going to, naturally wanting to get Neve preamps because Neve are creme de la creme, right? Um, or even API or some of that magnitude. But Like I have the warm tone beast. I've heard no bad results with anyone that's gotten a warm audio tone beast. Um, Even Treasure Owl, which is a recording studio out of Nashville, um, they praise them. They are really good and I can attest to that. I've used my warm audio tone beast. I have the black one, not the orange one, but the newer one, because you can switch between nickel and iron on the basic on the transformer. Uh between steel, I believe it's steel, and I have to look at the setting on it. But it gives you a lot of of warmth and so forth. The Altrons, which are Neve clones, because basically when I listen to the Neve, the Altron were probably the best bang for the buck without spending Neve price. Other than that, everyone knows I have the Universal Audio 610, and those are excellent preamps, as well as the Avalon. So I won't shortcut that. Um, so um, anyhow, so with all that being said, um, those are areas I just won't shortcut, especially when it comes to wanting to record acoustic guitar, vocals. You can DI a bass. Um, Even though I like my Harkey bass cabinet, um, it's the same. It's basically the same bass head and bass cabinet that Victor Wooten uses, and I know why he uses it. I use it. I have the same bass cabinet. Um, Other than that, um, other gear. When I listen to the lens, I listen to the lens. I have the Clark Technic and other pre compressors and so forth. But when I heard the Lens 76s, which are probably the closest clone to getting Universal Audio 1176 um, sound, were the Lens 76s. That's why I got one. I also got the Lens 2A, which is really really close to the LA 2A. I do have a ton of plugins as well, but those are key areas. Now, um, what I want to talk about is I was talking about I did my reaction video to the Behringer 369 and the Behringer 1273. Now, I have mixed reviews on Behringer stuff as well. I don't think everything that Behringer make, um, because you think about it, Behringer's mass producing a ton of I'm gonna get to y'all. I see our responses coming in. I'm gonna get to them in a second. Behringer, I think once again, when I was talking about Behringer, and why not? Because I think they actually put some actual thought process into building those 369 based on watching the video review. They actually pretty much made a better circuit. It's kind of like they did kind of like what Warm Audio decided to do, how they're able to get really good sound at a fraction of the cost. So, because everyone knows about, everyone has mixed views about Behringer gear. I think I've made a video on Behringer, so I'm not going to harp too much on Behringer stuff. But I think, so I'm here to talk about gear. So let's go. I see Man Network. He pretty interacts. I think he's stays pretty consistent with the channel, which I really appreciate. John says, I honestly consider mastering through 2 API channels. Yeah, you can't. Well, I guess API. Are you talking about the console, or are you talking about maybe some of their outboard gear? Just gotta. I know that API makes everyone knows about API preamps. And of course the API 2500, they have their compressor. A lot of people a lot of people use the SSL bus compressor or even the Neve 33609 compressor. Some people think that the Neve is can squash on a Neve 33609. There are plugins that emulate practically every outboard gear out there. That's why I'm a heavy user of acoustical audio and T-Rax, which is the IK Multimedia, because a lot of their plugins emulate gear you would see in a rack. I was really drawn to that, and they're pro. I'm a big time user. I do have some Wave. I do have Slate audio. So then, oh, okay. Brain Traumatizer says they said using a GAP, which is Golden Age Project. I think it's Projects. Golden Age Projects 73 with the 73 Premier EQ. You know, I saw a video about the Golden Age probably about 10 years ago, and there was people that were ragging on the Golden Age, but then I've seen a lot of studio tours that have Golden Age 73. So I don't really have any negative thoughts to say about Golden Age at all. I know they make some mic pre's, they make compressors, they definitely make microphones. I think Golden Age I think they're about as good as any other company that makes clones. So I honestly do. But sometimes when people make a negative review on a product, and this can even happen with the name brand gear. We have all known about an SSL 4000 channel going out. You know, those kind of consoles were staying on 24/7. They were always, constantly, because they were on, because they were always constant clients, so engineers who had to shut down, assistant engineers would have to redo the live room, and then they start running through the board again. The board never shuts off. So yeah, I can see how a channel eventually, that stuff is on, it's hot. The caps eventually, the capacitors is the weakest link in any electronic, is the capacitors, especially electric lytical capacitors. So most of the time, if you have an electronics problem, keyboard, piece of rack gear, console, microphone, whatever, and it won't work, 90% of the time, it's some capacitor that failed. Resistors hardly ever fail. Diodes hardly ever fail. Capacitors fail all the time, especially electric lyticals, because it's just, sometimes they get hot, they break, they explode, they leak. And it's not just for voltage, but also for signal. A lot of times that's basically how a EQ is made up. You with a bunch of different rated capacitors, op amps, and basically variable resistors. That makes up an EQ. So let me get to the next question. So Man at John said, I do the same with API and Neve preamps. Okay, he's talking about the preamps. Once again, I don't have an API. I have the Tone Beast, which is an API clone. Excellent sounding preamp. Got the idea to get one simply because I was watching Treasure Owl's video. I'm trying to draw his name. He works with Warren Hewitt. He joined Warren Hewitt's Produce Like a Protein not too long ago, a couple of years. They do the NAMM shows together. He's a Grammy Award-winning mix engineer. He does a lot of country artists out of Nashville. But it's called Treasure Owl. Somebody will probably throw his name in the comments in a minute, because I'm drawing a blank on his name. But he did a big video on it, and that's what drew me to getting the Warm Audio Tone Beast. I got one. I want to get a few more, because people know me. I always like to have multiple of the same ones. Like I'm gonna get another Universal 610. I just like to have a backup. Even if I only have using one preamp, I like to have backup. That's why I have two Avalon 737s. I said, and he's probably been too lazy to switch between the API or okay, gotcha. It gets like that. John says, might be ultimate solution for not having $20,000 for a loaded API box, or $6,000 for a full of 1608. And I think that goes with the console too. API, I haven't seen API drop in price even in the used sector like I've seen the SSL and the Neves. Most people don't want a console simply because they're just big and heavy. For the most part, because a lot of times I've always said again, even though there are people that watch the channel say a console is more than just channel scripts, but it's a signal routing tool, mixing engineering tool, but they're basically racks of channel strips. The issue with consoles are they're just heavy. They're big, they're heavy, takes 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people to move that joker. But I've always said once you've got it installed and you got your control room, your mixing room, your however you got it set, it ain't going nowhere. Like this console is Allen Heath, weighs about 140 pounds. This is a 48 channel. It's been sitting in the same spot for the last few years. So if you want a console, I'm not against that. If you're don't want a console, I'm not against that either. It's a preference. It is not a necessity like it used to be 40 years ago. Let me read some more comments. Brain Traumatized said, got the Tone Beast finally. Maybe tomorrow. Let me see. Gotta read the Tone Beast finally. Maybe tomorrow. Okay. I mean, are you getting one, or I'm not understanding that one, but I won't shortcut on preamps, mics, interface, instruments, and a few top shelf compressors. Yep. Like I said, it's just there's certain things you just can't shortcut. Some things you can, like there's certain things you can use Behringer stuff on, but I find, and I'm not hating on Behringer, but I do find myself not using or buying as much Behringer stuff like I used to. I think what Behringer has that is good, I think their number one selling tool that Behringer has is their interfaces and their digital mixers. Out of everything they're selling, I think they've gotten that right, is the interfaces and the digital mixers. So other things are just hit or miss with Behringer. Like I said, I'm not like I said, I had a Behringer. I'm using the Behringer interface right now, but I switched to the Marketer Unicorn because they're just they're just better interfaces. I have 2 Marketer Unicorn. I have an 896 Mark III downstairs. I also have the 24 AO, which is the 24 output. I'm getting the 24 input. So those two can mix for my setup downstairs. But I also have 2 Mark 896 HDs under the desk that's connected to my Mackie. I also have the Antelope. I just, when it comes, they're just, I'm not hating on Behringer, but Marketer Unicorn, Antelope, companies like that, Apogee, I mean, Lynx, that, those are just RME, those type of interfaces. They're just better interfaces. They just are. But I do have a couple of Behringer. I have a UFO and a 88, 82, 8200 downstairs that it's a decent interface. I'm not going to hate on it, but they're just, it's not going, my Antelope is the reason why the Antelope's, it's a better interface. And that's why you pay with the price. Let me go to the next comment. It says, NEQ, let's see. Watch the Behringer video. Kind of want to try the comp and just buy a rack cassette deck. Kind of want to bus comp to do some mastering to a cassette. Once again, with the Behringer 369, it's a piece of gear. I watched the video, it just came out, and people are jumping on it. It's $499, and when I listened to it, I was impressed. Because I think finally, when the people, people always was on clues and always was always accusing Behringer of being a clone company. But these are the first two pieces of gears that are actually clones, in my opinion. And for how they built the unit, from what they showed how it was built and the transformers and the unit being a pretty solid unit, and listening to it, I think it took Behringer. I think they're actually, in my personal opinion, I think it took them too long to come up with products like this. I think they should have came out with products like this a long time ago. So that if you're gonna accuse me of being a clone company, let's make some authentic clones. Warm Audio has absolutely made that's what excelled Warm Audio, because everyone knows Warm Audio is a clone company, because everything they made looked like Universal Audio and API, whatever the case. They just changed the name, the model number names on it for trademark and copyright purposes, and so they won't get sued that way. Instead of calling it a, Neve 1073, they just called it the Warm Audio, WA 73 or whatever. That's how all these companies getting away with it. But they keep the 73 because you can't really patent a number like that, like you can a name. Heritage Audio, Ventec Audio, they're all 73. GAP 73. They're all, so that way we know we're talking about a 1073. We're talking about a Neve 1073. The BAE 73, they all want to make sure that you understand we talk about the 73. And the 73 is the most popular of the, there is the 1081, the 1084. There's more than just 3-band or 4-band EQ Neve, EQ preamp products, channel strip products. There's, most people, unless you've been in the studio game and you know about the Neve 1081s or the Neve 1082s, 1084s, and so forth, and know about they're notorious for the op amps that are used in those circuits that gives it part of its sound with the transformer. Whether it's, I think Neve was using, I can't remember the name of, the transformer company. Then Cinemag came into play, and then there's other ones, Jensen transformers and stuff like that. But all these circuits is what make these expensive gear why it sounds like it sounds. So let me jump to the next comment. 500 series is a commitment, though. Yeah, because if you invest in the 500 series, which I think it's the best way to get top name gear without spending because most of the time we fill our racks with 19-inch rack gear. 500 series allow you to get that at a fraction of the cost, but there have always been people out there that criticize 500 series that you're sharing the same power supply, which may compromise the quality tone of a 500 series unit. I'm like, blah, blah, blah. But, there's always a critic out there, yet there are hundreds of studios that have 500 series racks. And I'm talking about Pultex, API, Neve, SSL, GML. I mean, we can go all the top names, Chandler Limited, Tube Tech. I mean, and I'm not even scratching the surface of the top name pieces of gear. There's there's still distressors, which remind me, this is not being sponsored by any video, but I'm gonna tell you another way that you can get some gear that I would look at. There is Thomann, which is a German overseas company that sells a lot of that top name gear a little bit cheaper than you would, getting it from Vintage King or Sweetwater. Then there is Z Sounds, which allow you to, let's say you want to get a high-end compressor like my Universal Audio 610 preamp. You can actually get that from Z Sounds and spend, and make payments on it. And that's one way to start loading yourself up if you can afford to make payments. No credit check, blah, 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 blah. That's a way to get you to start building. If you want to get some outboard gear and you want to get the best of the best. And there's a reason why I would stress that too, but I'm gonna talk about that in a second. But let me read some more comments. Uh, Man Network says my primary preamps are Neve 1073s with EQ, but I love API and warm audio for all the extra stuff. I think Neve 1073s is one of the golden staples simply because of its warmth. They're not necessarily known to be the punchiest, um, harder hitting preamps like the API 512s or so forth, simply because it's kind of like they're little, it's kind of almost like describing a little bit smoother tone compared to, like, if you were going to do a hardcore rock band, you probably want API. But if you want to do some jazz, R&B, some hip hop, some pop, the 1073 probably would be a lot more preferred. That's also in combination with the microphone that you're going to use, because some people use the Sony. It's the Sony 800. It look like a condenser mic, but it has a big gigantic heat sink on the back of it. That's pop, especially in hip hop, R&B. Then there's the Neumann U87 is a real popular. It's a FET microphone. It's not a tube. And then of course I like tube microphones for their warmth. It has the tube in their transformer and so forth. They just sound warmer to me in tubes microphones. That's just me. So it all really depends on the source. But that in combination with the 1073 is probably the most popular. They were known. That's why, with Neve consoles are basically, you have a channel strip, get your separate 1073 preamp, or if you bought the console, that's what a Neve console, most of them would come with the 1073 style preamp in the preamp section. And then, you got a, Neve VR88 or something like that. You're going to have that warmth Neve preamp sound. And they do. I mean, if you want to really hear those Neve preamps sound work, I got just Google. There is, what's the name of I have to think of the it's in England, I believe, or Europe. And they were filming a film score, and they were recording an orchestra. And you can, if it comes to me, I'll put in the comments or something. But if you want to hear, this, I can't remember this, the name of the video, but they were filming this film score, and you can hear. You got to listen. You can't listen to it through like the speaker on your iPhone or Android. You have to listen through actual at least computer monitor speakers, but if preferably actual speakers to really hear the depth of, how those preamps and those microphones are really picking up that orchestra. So let me see. Oh, Brian Traumatized said, no, I was saying I had one for months, but been too lazy to switch from the gap. From the golden age to the Tone Beast. Gotcha. Try it out. When you get some chance, try it out. That's a really good, and like I said, I'm drawing a blank on his name. It just comes with age. He does of the warm audio Tone Beast that's what really blew warm audio up. For everyone was impressed with how good that preamp cost, or for how good it sounded for the price. Everyone was blown away. Like, I've heard no bad comments about the Tone Beast. So I think you're gonna like it a lot. And said, let me see, let me go. He said, I'll got to get around to it finally. The Man Network says, I got several 1081s and 1084s, but they cost significantly more, so I stick to 1073. Also need transformers are called Mariner. That's what it is. The Mariner transformers. I think they were doing Mariner Transformers until Rupert Neve himself left, and then when he went to go to do the Focusrite, and there's a big video on the Focusrite, that Focusrite console. They only made 10. That's a beautiful console. It's a shame they only made 10. I think only 5 is still in production. One is in BOP Studios or BOP Studios in Africa. There's one in New York. There's a couple of more Focusrite consoles, but that's probably one of the best looking consoles I've ever seen. But then the Focusrite, after that happened, Focusrite got into mainly interfaces more than anything. They really got to, and they had some preamps. They like I can't remember the model number, the preamp, but that preamp, a lot of times it looks like a little small. I'm drawing a blank on this. I usually would be spitting these numbers out, but like I said, I'm getting older. But they have a preamp channel strip that's basically the same circuits as that console. I wouldn't mind pulling a punch on and getting a couple of those, simply because I wouldn't mind getting that Focusrite console sound. That Universal or United, or used to be Oceanway / United. That's the one that what's his name? Joseph Pute, engineer, was using in that control room in Oceanway, and it's still there. That's the console. You'd be amazed. I mean, everyone from Michael Jackson to Janet to Boyz II Men to Madonna, just a lot of artists has been recorded through that Focusrite console. It's an amazing console. But you can get the Focusrite. But going back to let me see. And then but the Neve 1073 is the most sought after, because one, it's the most affordable, and it's I mean, like I said, it's what Alan Schmidt was using. That's what's in the Neve 88 VR they have down in Capitol Studios. It's a Neve 1073 preamp circuit in that console, in that Neve VR 88. They just improved a lot of the other things what's going on within the on the channels, and the onboard compressors and EQs and all the dynamics and stuff like that. But yep, the clone then he says Z Sounds and American Music Supplier partner together, and both companies have no credit check payments. If people need, like I said, that's how I got my Universal Audio 610, through Z Sounds. Joe Correll, that's his name, Joe Correll. He with Joe Carroll, but I think it's Joe Correll with an E. Yeah, he's the one that basically how he has a lot of warm audio in his racks. I forget the name of he's a #1 country selling artist that's recorded in Treasure Isle. And he said, of course, he has the name brand stuff like Neve API and all that. He has that as well. But he said, you'd have to watch the interview on Treasure Isle recording studio tour. And he breaks down a lot of warm audio gear, and there's no shame in it. But there's also STEM audio, there's Heritage audio, there's even hairball audio, which allows you to do it yourself. If you got the time, if you have the time, buying yourself a do-it-yourself unit. If you're good with a soldering iron, I thought about doing that as well. It said, oh man, it said Joe is a friend of mine, and he is a legit uses warm audio gear daily. Yep. And if you ever been to Nashville, There's a place called Berry Hill. If you ever go to Nashville, the Guitar Center, Paget Lane, Guitar Center in that plaza, there's a medical center in that plaza. Across the street goes into Berry Hill, which is his own little sub-city of Nashville. And Treasure Isle is right next door to the largest recording studio in Nashville called Blackbird. They're right literally next door to each other. And of course, the Blackbird, and of course, when I watched, and here's my thing. When I watch these studio tours, whether it's Blackbird, Treasure Isle, it could be Ocean Way Studio Tour, it could be East West Studio Tour, it could be Sunset Sound, any recording studio tour, and I'm talking about these commercial studios, I'm always paying attention to the gear that they have in the racks. Warren Hewitt is really big on going to these studios and looking at what they got in their outboard gear and why they're using it, why they have it, and what are they using it on, and even sometimes the settings. That is a key factor to that gear, including if you're going to use a plugin, because plugins are emulations of real gears, not the other way around. I've seen somewhere where someone said, "Oh, you got a rack gear. That's just like the plugin." No, you got the plugin. That's just like the rack. Plugins came after real gear. Oh yeah, he said the Focusrite ISA 1. That's it. They also had a Focusrite. I think it's the 428 or something like that. But that's the channel strip, which there's still about $1,500-$1,600 on Reverb. Like I said, people wonder why I got all these, because I always want to have a ton of flavor. So when I'm completely equipped with the studio, that way someone, oh, you got that. Okay. I like that preamp, or you got an Avalon, or you got 73s or whatever. I always like to have a choice. So I'll be in your encyclopedia. I'll be your encyclopedia. Yep. Because I can't remember half the name of these pieces of gear. I can't remember half the pieces of these gear. So he said, I got a place in Berry Hill. Berry Hill. Well, if you got a place in Berry Hill, because there's the way they zone is basically a commercial studio mega. But even though there is the strip in Nashville called Music Row, that's where RCA and Ocean Way of Nashville is all on Music Row. But I'll tell you one thing about the recording studios in Nashville, they stay busy. There's so many, but you think about it, everyone that goes to Nashville, and it's not always just country. I mean, they got hip hop, there's jazz artists, there's blues, there's a whole different genres. There's a whole different genre of artists that go to Nashville. And then there's a lot of independent, unknown, unsigned, independent artists that go to Nashville. I think Nashville, along with Los Angeles, New York, Miami, Chicago, you would think Houston would have a bigger recording studio market, but it doesn't. There's some recording studios. And then, of course, because of the history of Muscle Shoals in Alabama, that studio stays pretty busy, which is called Fame Recording Studios. Yeah, he says we do everything from classic to jazz to death metal now. Yeah, Nashville is no longer just primary country and western and bluegrass anymore. It's every genre. But Nashville, the only thing with Nashville is the cost of living has shot up. It's not as bad as Los Angeles or New York, but it's expensive to live in Nashville. I think the sub cost for a home in Nashville is about, for the same square footage I got in my house here, the same in Nashville, I would probably, because I bought this house originally for $159. The same equivalent square space in Nashville run me about over $400,000. I just don't feel like spending $2,200, $2,300, $2,500 a month in mortgage, when my mortgage right now is under $1,000. So, man, it's more like $600,000. Yeah, well, depends on where you live now. You can always live on East Nashville. It's cheaper over there, but there's a reason why it's cheaper over there off of 12th Street. Um, but yeah, that's just yeah, Nashville's expensive. It's almost Los Angeles. He said, "Don't want to get shot." Yeah, stay out of, yeah, yeah. You know what I'm talking. You know what I'm talking about. Go down 12th Street in that area, and the projects over there off of Highway 24. You know what I'm talking about. It's not that far from the stadium either. But I had to laugh too because he living there. Yeah, I go to Nashville quite a bit. But the gear, what I really want to, because I know I've been talking 40 minutes now, and I want to get people's input. I really want to get people's input. What do you think about software and trying to keep up with the Jones with the software? Now, you don't have to be like me who has 25 different DAWs. Most people have one, two, three DAWs that they stick with, that they're, whether it's Ableton Live, whether it's Pro Tools, Studio One, Reaper, whatever you choose. What do you think about their updates and and um and so forth? I'm sorry. How do we contact you for mixing and mastering? I'm not really a mastering. Uh, if you want to, I'm not really even big on the mixing. I do some mixing, but when people, let me talk about the mixing. Like for me, for mixing, I'm not a type of person that's going to take someone's tracks and then I'm going to sit there and see what plugins and tools or gear I can do to cut and and or vocals and put auto tune. And I just I'm only kind of, because of what I do and the style of music I do, like R&B and stuff like that, doesn't require a ton of like modern, a lot of more of the modern um hip hop and stuff like that, to where you're going to start doing all these, you take a vocal and then you might want to add this effect on it to make it sound like the vocals are reversing, or that's not me. As far as mastering, there are companies out there. I think they always advertise about their mastering. You would probably be a lot happier if you went there mastering. I only know how to master for the stuff for my original stuff. If that's, and I hate to say that in a way. Someone sent me a couple of tracks to master and they didn't like it, but they were expecting me to do this, and I just don't do that. I'm more of a recording uh engineer more than anything. I can mix, but I don't advertise it. You probably better off getting like some other people that, like, I would see. You better be all better. You probably be better off with like Chris Lord Algae to mix. He's a mixing engineer king. I would seek his services. So there, that's what it is. Man said I run a closed system, meaning it's not connected to the internet. I do major overhaul updates every 10 years. I need my studios to be extremely reliable. Don't keep up with the Joneses. He said, and he's affordable. Yeah, I would, anyone out there that do mixing and mastering like that, I would that's all they do. I would actually seek them. I'm more like a producer, recording type of person. My mixing is pretty simple. I'm gonna apply a little bit of, I'm gonna apply whatever reverbs and delays that I want on vocals and all that, whatever compressors I'm gonna put on the drums and all that. But I don't do mixing in a way that makes your stuff's, it's kind of like Josh out of Larrabee Studios. Joshua, that he's known to do that, or those type of engineers, they're known for that. That's who I would seek. It says I do mixing and mastering, but I'm expensive. It really is really determined on if you're excuse me, I don't necessarily want to say someone's um, expensive if that's what you're good at. That if that's your price, that's just your price. Brain Traumatized says, I have more plugins and for YouTube purposes and crap that I need that I'm getting more into outboard, but back into cassettes again. So I get less interested in software. Let's talk about plugins. I think I'm gonna talk about plugins because this is gonna rub some people the wrong way. No matter what plugin you get, and it could be iZotope, Sound Toys, IK Multimedia that I use, Acoustica Audio, Waves, UADs, and the list just goes on and on. Plugins, when I'm listening, because I'm always running through analog gear, when I'm running through this gear and I'm listening to stuff through here. The funny thing is that some of the cheapest compressors I got are called Alesis 3630 compressors. They're really, really cheap, especially on the used market, but they're very, very reliable. They're very, very, what I like about them is they're very, very, you can really dial in certain ratios, because certain compressors, and I'm gonna get to the point real quick on this, why I'm saying this when it comes to plugins versus real gear. On like the Alesis 3630, sometimes I don't want a fixed ratio like a Universal Audio, like a 76 has 4-to-1, 8-to-1, 12-to-1, 16-to-1, all buttons in, and so forth, limiting and so forth. Sometimes I only need 5-to-1, or I only need 3-to-1, or I need only 7-to-1, or whatever. Sometimes I don't want a fixed ratio. And that you have to really be discreet. And sometimes I want to really adjust the the time of my attack and release instead of having fixed attack and releases. And sometimes if you look at the LA2A, it's mostly just peak reduction, gain, and that's it. And it's like an opto sail that it's basically an opto compressor and sometimes you need more control in that. But even using that 3630, or even on a bass, to really dial in so you don't lose a lot of transit, sometimes you need, especially if a bass player, so if he's popping and slapping, you need to hear a little bit of boom, you don't want to, over compress. But even using that 3630 over a plugin, a lot of the times, 80% of most plugins sound digital. And it's, I mean, they have tape emulation plugins. They have saturation plugins. I mean, they got all these plugins, but you have to remember one thing about a plugin. One thing about a plugin is that on a plugin, what is the source of your plugin? It's your PC or your Mac. There's nothing in your PC or Mac. There's no tubes. There's no transformers. There's no opt amps and stuff like that. It's just a CPU, RAM, and software emulations running through an operating system. So those programs, they have to use all kinds of coding. A lot of people would say C++ or whatever. They have to use this coding to make something sound as close to a real diode, transformer, resistor, circuit, so forth. And because of that, it's always going to be emulation. The best way I can describe it, how can I describe a plugin? You can go get a virtual reality game, play a car racing game, and you can get on there and you can put on your eyes, and you're going and you through this game, and they can make the graphics look so realistic. You know, it's kind of like watching GTA, right? Grand Theft Auto, and it looks realistic, but you can definitely tell it's Grand Theft. You can tell it's a video game. And let's say in that game is a Charger Hellcat, and you're driving it, and it just looks real. Everything the way about that game looks real, especially GTA 5 and all that. The way these games look, they look realistic. Now go get in a real Hellcat and drive a real Hellcat. That's the best way I can describe analog to digital. The only thing is with digital, with plugins and things like that, the sounds of them are a lot closer to driving a real Hellcat or a real Mustang or a real Corvette, or they're a lot closer, but it's still an emulation. The thing is, in mixing and recording and all that, it's like listening to a guitar, or I can play a guitar sample from my keyboard. It can sound like an authentic guitar, but a real guitarist can still tell that it's a keyboard guitar, because the way a guitar is played is part of the sound. When a real person's playing a real guitar, you just can't. There's nothing out there that can emulate. I can't describe it any better than that. If you're a guitar player and you play a real guitar and you play guitars on a keyboard, you can, you know, even though they have like the Integra 7 sound module has this program that makes it sound like you're a guitar player playing a real guitar. It's close, but not like a real guitar. And that's the same thing with a sax or trumpet or any other instrument, a real instrument. They sound close. The average listener that listens to music wouldn't know the difference, because they're not focused like us that are into recording or that are musicians. A non-musician don't really care about a guitar sound on the keyboard versus a real guitar, you know, unless they're into the art, and they may not be a musician. They study or whatever. But the average listener, someone that just jams music in a car, they don't care. So that's what plugins are. That's the reason why it's so many people that were diehard. I'm going to be plugins, racks in the box, blah, 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 blah. Then every time I notice that, they always seem to, I need to add some sort of actual real piece of outboard gear. You'll start to see they've added a preamp, or I need a compressor. You'll start to see some outboard gear, because they know what makes the sound of a compressor, a rack, a real piece of gear is the electronics. Your computer, your PC or Mac don't have it. The real piece of gear does. Running it through the circuits of a real piece of gear is the key. It's the reason why a lot of us still prefer to run this stuff through consoles. It's the sound running through the console that gives it the sound. And this is why API and SSL and Neve consoles and so forth are big like that. Now, for one quick thing, and I'm going to answer a few more comments that I seen popped up. The digital consoles, once again, are great. I have one over there. I have an older Yamaha digital console, but I have one. I also have a digital console downstairs, the little Behringer XR12. It's a digital console. But once again, I would say with the electronics and the circuits of those digital consoles, they're about 90 plus % of analog. That little 10% is not enough to really distinguish a big difference between listening to someone running sound through a digital console and an analog console until you actually A/B it. When you A/B it, like if I ran my stuff through a digital console, we're talking, it could be the newest digital consoles, and I run it through the same setup through that digital console, then I run it through my Allen Heath, you'll hear it. It won't be a big distinguishable difference, but you'll hear it. If you really have a tuned ear, you'll hear it. And you'll see why people are still raving about trying to get their stuff, even if it's digital or plug-in, as close to sounding analog as possible, because analog is natural sounding. That's the reason why people, digital isn't. So let me get off the digital. Let me answer some more comments that popped up. So Manware says software is saturated. Get smooth, Soothe 2 and SSL pack and a good reverb. You can mix Grammy records with those and your DAW. Let me speak one thing on. Let me say one more thing, and this is not the belittling what Man Network just wrote about Grammy. Let me explain, because I've seen a video on this. Buy these tools for $3,400 and you'll be able to get Grammys. Grammys don't work like that. Grammys is a voting board, and they're going to vote on popularity, and that's in a nutshell. Billboard sales and everything is based on popularity, how much people like these songs, the artist, how much they like the artist. That's what's going to get a Grammy. So you can make music and make really great music. And if you don't have the popularity, the fan base, the popular people, so forth, you're not going to get a Grammy. And that's not just attack or, but I get what you're saying. I get what Man is saying about Grammys. In other words, your industry standard would be a better phrase for that. Instead of, I would hate to, because your American Music Awards, MTV Awards, this, but it's just that it's a term we threw out there, man. If you get this Pro Tools, you'll get Grammys. Well, no. So he said correct, industry standard. I think that's a better term. Industry standards, like doing your studios, is like getting your music and not mastering it. If you don't master, you're not making your stuff industry standard. Industry standard meaning like it's ready, playable. It can be played on any source, and you don't have to worry about having any problems. People would hear this all the time when people would make a song, and they would throw a song, and they had to go back and listen. They could be in a recording studio, and they throw up a quick mix and go in the car and try to see if it's referencing what they're hearing in the studio, or how's it sound on headphones, or how's it sound on earbuds, and yada yada yada. That is, but mastering definitely says, okay, your songs will be able to play on this genre, this format, that format, these computer monitors, these speakers in your car, on headphones, and it's all going to reference the same as far as industry standard. That's what mastering does. Let me see. Seven Sun says, what do you think about the SSL Fusion? I never owned one. I've seen people use them. When it comes to gear, I've never owned. I can't really throw an opinion on it because I've never used it. So I can't really comment on it. But if there's videos on the SSL Fusion, if you watch the videos and people they demonstrate it, and you like how it sound, I would say that would probably give you a better what's the word I'm looking for? A better understanding of, what do you think about the piece of gear? That's, any gear that I don't own, I just can't make a comment because I don't own. I've never got a chance to use it. A man says they're good. They're more of a color box than an EQ though. Okay. And then let's see. Here's the deal. 100% prefer analog, but I don't think most home studios people can justify the cost of hardware and plugins are good enough for the greatness. And yeah, I mean, and once again, I'll say this too. It really depends on your genre. Because if you're doing EDM music, I can come in here, use this MPC, and this controller, this M-Audio controller, and use all VIP software. And that's all I need. Or I can just use this MPC Renaissance, and that's all I need for EDM music. So it's really the same thing with hip hop. I can use this MPC and just do nothing but hip hop samples, vocals, everything, and that's the standard. So it's genre based. But if you're doing jazz, a rock band, country and western band, anything that's a band where you got drums, an actual drum set, bass, guitar, maybe some keys, vocals. 9% of the time, you're going to want more analog than anything. The only thing that we've gotten away from that's the industry standard for that's pretty much in every studio is an audio interface, which is the AD to DA converter. It's going to become it's going to become digital in the process, which is going to cut down on some of that. Unless you want to go to Studio 1979, they can do everything. They have an MCI console, outboard gear, and tape machines, and they can even cut to vinyl and everything. They can do the whole old school analog way. If you want to go that route, it can be done. The only other thing I got close to that without having to go through the ADD converter would be my ADAP, and those are still digital because they're converted, or my 24 HD hard disk recorder, but it still becomes digital at some point. So in essence, almost every studio today, even all your big names out there, from Abbey Road to United, Oceanway, is hybrid because of the AD to DA converter. If there's a digital unit in the process somewhere, it's hybrid. Let me see. Man, there's the 3400 video is a freaking joke. It is. We picked on that video because the guy was trying to tell you what I didn't like about the videos. He was trying to tell people, if you got an M Audio, or if you got Focusrite, let's say you have Focusrite Scarlett, or whatever interface, you need to throw it away and get the Universal Apollo. You need to get this, and this will get you Grammys, which is complete BS. Because Grammys aren't voted on gear. Now, Grammys engineers, the way they mix and engineer record, can get them a Grammy, but not that gear. The song and the artist is what gets Grammys, not the gear, because the audience that listens to music don't know anything about gear. You got the average person that, millions of people out there that listen to music, they don't know. You start throwing gear terms out there. Yeah, I'm using Mojave cables with an API. I got an API legacy console with, Telefunken 251 and Newman U87 microphones and Newman U67 FET microphones. And I got a control room, with uneven walls, and I got gobos, and, I'm using this, Pultec EQ1P EQs with Universal 1176s, and I got drummer and distressors, and I sit there in a sweet spot and, checking my speaker for SPLs. No, they're gonna be like, yeah. Mm-hmm. It's like going to your barbershop. You don't even know the name of the clippers. No one's in the name of the clippers except for the other barbers. Hey man, what's the name of those clippers you got? Oh, these are what's your name? Blah 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 models 120 24s or whatever. Other than that, you just go, I just need my haircut. Careless about the name of the clippers. And that's the same thing with gear. I did make a video before about does your audience even care if it's analog or digital? Most of them cannot hear that 80 of the, that small fraction of a difference between analog and digital. As long as it sounds like music and it's a great song and it gets the audience, that's what they care about. You get to the point where you got people that they'll listen to the music on their Android iPhone through the speaker, and knowing that if I play it through my Certain Vegas and my sub here, it's going to sound a lot better, but it's like going to the club, whatever. But most people don't care about stuff like that. Let me see the next one. It says, let me see what's the next one. Got lost with my jabbering. I mix between hardware and software. And that's most of us. That's pretty much all of us. We're mixing between hardware and software. And he said, and then he said, my setup is hybrid, have a mix of plugins to and keyboards. Okay, yep. Like everyone know I'm keyboard heavy. Let me see. Let me go to the next ones. Two other. Let me see. Oh, Young Gordon said, "Preach, preach, my brother." I'm just calling like I see it. So, yeah, it's the best. Let's see. Yes, it says Vigilante says guys are recording hits in their living room nowadays. I mean, a recording done right, you can't, you know, it's like even when I listen to music, I can listen to old school music. Let's go back to Michael Jackson's Thriller, or I might throw in a Star Point album or a Freddie Jackson record or whatever. When I'm listening to music, it doesn't come to mind that, oh, Freddie Jackson recorded in Sunset Sound, or I listen to a Prince record. The only way I would know Prince recorded in Sunset Sound is because I watched a documentary that Prince recorded in Sunset Sound. But then I've listened to later Prince records, still think he recorded Sunset Sound, not realizing he recorded at Paisley Park. So the studio don't come to mind. And because when you think of the studio, sometimes there's a lot of studios that have closed and sold their gear that a lot of these famous artists have recorded through and by these certain engineers, but they've sold their gear. So a lot of times we don't even know unless you have the record and the mix engineer. And then sometimes they'll say it'll say the studio, the mixing engineer, but it don't tell you, oh, this was recorded on an API Legacy or Trident 78 or an SSL or a vintage Neve 8048, or it just don't say that. They don't have the room to tell you, oh, this is the signal, the vocal signal chain was, I was recording through a U47 with a 1073 running through a Tube Tech, CLB, and that recorded through channel 1 of my Neve 848, and I was, whatever. They just don't do that. So sometimes you don't even know which studio these songs were recorded in. You just know that the sound sounded good. Let me see. And then let me see. Okay, there's more Z sounds let me see. The dude said, throw away your interface and get an Apollo Twin. Throw away your Newmans and other expensive mics and get an SM7. Which, yeah, I agree with, man. That was the dumbest, anyone knows that you're not top line gear. You just, no one's throwing away top notch gear. The dude said throw away your, yeah. I jumped on him on that one. Z Sounds will really only charge me $40 if I buy this bass. Okay. See. Oh yeah, they're talking to each other between the payment system and all that. Okay. Oh, you're talking about the Squire. Okay, they talking. Let me see. Let me scoot down to a few. He's talking about. Brent Traumatized said rent in LA is high, and I'm doing a DIY cassette label now. Well, I already talked about the cost of living. So they're just so like I said, when it comes to gear, I wanted to talk about earlier about the pros and cons. The thing with software, that's what I want to get back to on software, is with the changes in the operating system that Mac does, Windows is now going to become Windows 11 dominant. Um, and then there's always like there's Reasons 13 are coming out. I still have Reason 11. Um, I started to put a bunch of Reasons 12, Reason 12. What else? But then there's other DAWs and there's other plugins and there's always constant. I haven't really did I just don't have a need to do constantly keep buying more and more plugins because I'm not using on this computer right here by itself. I got 1,000 plugins. I'm not even using 100 of them. It's time for me to eliminate a lot of these plugins because it's kind of like it's like, for example, a compressor plugin. I probably got 200 of the 200 compressor plugins when I only have 10 that I normally always use. The 10 I use work well for everything I'll ever do, from bass, vocals, keys, to you name it. So I'm like, okay, every time I see new plugins come out, they can have a Black Friday sale. I just don't need to upgrade. I just don't. But that's how companies work. They always constantly are introducing new products to get you to buy it. And that's the object. Anyone in business would want you to, keep buying from their business. But it gets to the point where I'm maxed out. I'm like, I can't use anymore. It's like all these keyboards. If you watch my studio tour, I got so many synthesizers. I don't need any more synthesizers. I just don't. So RES says, I always appreciate you getting on here and giving us real life DIY perspective. I appreciate you for tuning in. I appreciate everyone for tuning in. I'm only doing from my perspective of what I see and when I initially created the channel, when I initially created the channel was really talking about, I said the real truth about the music industry. It was one of my first videos. I think it got 25,000 views, and I wish I hadn't taken it down because I must have gained probably 300 or 400 subscribers just from that video. And I probably need to talk about the music industry and the real truth about the music industry in another live stream. So I guarantee there's probably viewers that watch my channel. There are probably viewers that watch my channel that want me to talk about that because there are people that watch my channel. They're not really so much into recording studio gear. They're actually into about the music industry and a music career. And I don't talk about that enough. I wish I hadn't taken them down because I took them down because I was afraid when they made this big thing a couple of years ago about the FCC and, if your stuff isn't children friendly related and all that, we're going to cut off your YouTube. And it never happened. All you had to do was say, okay, if you make content, make sure when I'm uploading and they ask you, is it for children, to hit no. That's all you have to do. And I wish I had, because I took down keyboard tutorial videos. Yeah, people know the biggest thing that I am out of all this is I'm a musician. More than anything else, I'm a musician. And I wish I hadn't taken those, because some people said, quit taking down your videos. And I said part of my reason was some of the videos were only getting a few views. I have to understand when I make these videos, even if the video only gets a few views, those videos that the people view it were for them. Because I would get likes and whatever on that video. And those videos were for them. So I have to remember I have a bigger, wider audience. So when I start just talking about gear, it loses my other audience that actually want to know about playing keyboards. Or some people watch the video because I had some recording video tutorial videos that I took down. And those videos, everyone watches it. So I have to, so let me see. So let me write, let me read some more comments. I own 3 commercial studios and they all have a couple of thousand plugins at least. In my home studio, I have my DAW, Waves Combo Pack, and like 10 others. I really use on them daily. I see. Then he says, I'm bored as hell with plugins. Most of them are a money grab, and a handful of and only a handful are creative and useful. Once again, it's marketing. It's kind of like, do we need another auto-tune plugin out of the 50 they've already made? I have a couple of plugins that I got that I think Crystalology was promoting. I bought this plugin and I hadn't used it yet. I'm not creating enough music. And I'll tell you why I don't create enough music. The biggest thing, and I have a really good friend of mine tell me, you got to start just doing more jazz stuff and just doing more. I guess I've gotten so habit when I did the music for a group called A Different Taste. And if you all are wondering about A Different Taste, there's a guy that uploaded the music called A Different Taste on YouTube. And all you have to do is do a YouTube search called A Different Taste, and one of the songs is called Make a Move. And or you go to his channel, he's have other songs like Satisfaction Guarantee or Someone Like You, and all these names of these songs. I did those songs in the early 90s on my Sonic SQ1 Plus, a couple of rack modules and all that. We did that on ADAT, and then we eventually went down to Austin and recorded in a bigger studio. But I did all the music for that. I did have one of the producers, his name was Robert, play guitar, and none of the other he did a few add-ins on this. His name was Grover, that did a few add-ins, but 90% of that is all me. And so if you want to know what that music sound like, all you gotta do is do a YouTube search, and YouTube A Different Taste. I also have it uploaded on SoundCloud under I think I got it UMD Music Production or something like that. I forget the name of mine. I don't go to my SoundCloud page enough. But if you want to hear that music, that's me. I've had people make comments like, you always talk. We want to hear, even though I do some music videos, some of the videos I upload will say, this is a track I was working on and I'll play the track. Yeah, that's me playing the track. I did all the parts. But they'll still make it. You need to hear. We want to hear what you're doing. Well, that's what I'm doing. But anyhow, moving on. Let me see. Oh man, they said, dude, you took down a bunch of videos I used to have in the playlist, and I was pissed. Like I said, I apologize. I can't remember the name of those videos anymore. Because I thought the FCC, when they made that big threat a few years ago about taking people's YouTube channels down, I was like, okay, I'm taking my channels down. All I had to do was just say they're for adults, and I should have left them up. I probably had 100 videos, and then I took down some other videos. I just didn't think they were getting enough views, but that's, And then Laidback Beast versus, were you doing the music for these groups in the 90s while in the Army? Actually, I was in the reserves. Laidback Beast composed it. Yeah. Actually, how it happened, and I'll try to make this quick. How it happened, early 90s, we're talking 90, 91, 92. I was playing in a band called Legit. And then eventually I left active duty, joined the reserves. This town was called Waco, Texas. We ran into a producer. His name was Grover. And they needed a band for this group called A Different Taste. When he brought me the music, I could tell he was not a keyboard player. I asked him, I said, I just met him. And I was bold enough to say, hey, I can make this music better for you. He said, okay. He gave me a copy of the music that we were going to do for the show, because they were doing these shows like the Brazzles Night. And if you're from Waco, if you know from Waco and Texas area, they think called it Brazzles Night and all that. If you're familiar with, the Waco, Texas thing and so forth. And he had told me that they were trying to get this group signed with some different labels that actually looked at these groups, but that's a different story. Anyhow, so I took the music back, redid the music, and made it actually sound like more marketable, more commercial sound to it. He was so impressed, I became part of the music production team. And that's how I got started with that. I was in the reserves at the time, hadn't planned on going back in active duty. Hadn't planned on doing any of that because we were making waves. We actually got charted on Billboard. There was actual big people in the names. MCA came down, RCA. So I have to do a video on the whole ADT thing on a different video. I'm actually thinking about getting some of the artists, the group, to do I want to do a podcast / Zoom, and I want to see if they'll come on and we'll all talk about, I want to get Grover on there and the girls, and we'll talk about the ADT experience so y'all will be familiar with a different taste if you're not familiar with it. But you can actually still Google a different taste, make a move and all that. There's a few places like Discog and other places that are still selling the album. Now, did I make any money off of it? No. Did Grover make any money off of it? No. It's a long story. So I end up going back on active duty because I'm a type of person. I don't believe there's a lot of people that want to be a starving artist. They'll move to LA on $10. I can't do that. I'm too scared of, I don't want to be homeless. So I went back into active duty, got my retirement, and I still continue to do music and production on my spare time. That's in between deployments and PCS and from duty station to duty station and building up my recording studio. So that's my recording studio background. Okay. So, he said, how were you able to balance being in the military full time and have a music career? The thing is, I didn't have a music career like I was in the reserves where I could be at the label full time and doing music production for these artists and all that. I didn't have the time like that. How I was doing it in the Army was anything in the Army. You're not in the Army. You're in the Army. In other words, that's your job. You're in the Army, but you're not doing Army work 24/7. A typical day for any soldier in the Army is like this. You go from 0630, we call it 0630 because we do military time, 6:30 in the morning to 7:30 in the morning. You're doing physical training. You're running, push-ups, sit-ups. And then from 7:30 to 9 o'clock is your personal hygiene time and your time to get some breakfast. So, and then after that, 9 o'clock to about 11:30, you're doing your job. We call it an MOS, military occupational specialty. You're doing that. And then from 11:30 to 1, you go to lunch. And then from 1300, which is 1 o'clock, to about 1600, 1630, 1700, which is 4:30, 5 o'clock. That's what we call COB, close of business. That's the end of the day. After that, you're released unless there's a duty or you're going to the field or whatever. You're released for the rest of the day. So most of us will get out of uniform, change into our regular civilian clothes, and do whatever. So what I did was I played in bands. I would be doing music in my, when I'm off work or on the weekends, because you're not working pretty much on the weekends. You're pretty much off. Or we have what they call 4-day weekends. Sometimes you're off on that Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, or holidays or whatever. So you're off. So the times that I'm off, I'm doing music. If I wasn't out, at the time I was married, I got married. I originally got married in 2001. So if I went out there doing stuff, me and my wife was out there, we go somewhere or we're going on a trip or vacation. Now I was doing music. Now I'm not married anymore because, like anything, marriages, they don't work. So I got divorced, and so I'm a bachelor again. So he says, were you in Waco during the Branch Davidian stand-up? That happened in 93. I was not in Waco. I didn't get to Waco until 94. That by that time, the ATF and the FBI, the whole thing had burnt out. But the Branch Davidian was actually, if you're from the Waco area, the Branch Davidian was actually not in Waco. It was actually in a city called Belle Meade. But Belle Meade is a sub-city of Waco. It was a farm off a highway. And they found out about this guy named David Koresh, who, called himself Jesus and all that, even though he wore glasses. Like, I thought Jesus had perfect vision, so why would Jesus need glasses? But people fell for it anyway. That would have been a red flag for me. Tell me you call yourself Jesus, but you wear glasses. I'm like, no, when you heal yourself of your vision. But anyhow, so I'm making a joke. So anyhow, they caught wind of it and they caught wind of it. The FBI, because of the weapons, the ATF got involved, and because it was a cult and was accused, what do you call it when you have multiple wives and all these blah 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 blah. So because of that, that whole thing, and of course they went in to raid it. They caught on fire, burnt down. People lost their lives. It became polygamy. That's it. So and so the FBI got involved, and because it's Belle Meade, they associated with Waco. Waco is the main city. If you ever get a chance to drive through Texas, you're going to Highway 30. They got this thing called the I forget the name of the Alamo. It's say Alamo, words Alamo at the top, not the Alamo, but ALOMO. It's like I don't know if that was a hotel, but Waco's downtown isn't big like Dallas or Austin or Houston that actually have sky rises. But also the group High Five were from Waco. And the thing is, the group that I did, they went to high school with some of the members of High Five, even though High Five has a unsung video about they were considered the unluckiest R&B group because of all the tragedies that kept happening to that group. But anyhow, Waco, they all knew each other. So how did I get to Texas, or am I originally from Texas? No, I'm from Ohio. Because I joined the Army, it sent me to Korea, then it sent me to Texas, and that's how I ended up in Texas. Now I wasn't always stationed in Texas. I got stations like Fort Campbell, Fort Carson, towards Korea. I was a recruiter, blah 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 blah. But that's how I got to Texas. So, and because any place you get stationed, you meet people, and so I would say I have more friends that I met through the Army than from my hometown, even though I have quite a few people from my hometown. So let me see, man, I have a ton of about the standoff and fire, but I guess I never knew it wasn't really Waco. No, it was in Belle Meade. But like I said, because Belle Meade is a sub city. It's kind of like if you're from Houston, where you got Spring, you got Cypress, you got there's let me see some of the others. There's Pearland. There is all these sub towns around Houston. So they're not, because people don't really know Pearland like they know Houston, so they're going to associate it with Houston. So any major town, like my hometown, there's Dayton right past an Air Force base, but then there's all these sub towns. You got of course my hometown, there's West Carrollton, there's Centerville, there's Vandalia, there's all these sub towns, but they're still associated with Dayton. So Aria said, Mark, for those that are interested in standalone multi-track recorder like a 24-32 track for home studio, would you have any recommendation or advice what to look for? It can be older or new or analog. If let's say you want to use a 24-track hard disk recorder and you want to invest and you want to, you really want to save up, one of the best hard disk recorders would be it's IZ Radar. It's probably one of the best sounding 24-track recorders, hands down. Now, I have the Alesis 24-track hard disk recorder, and then there's a couple of other ones. There is Tascam has a hard disk recorder. There's quite a few. The leases that I got really, really high marks, as well as a hard disk as a hard disk recorder. That would probably be my second best, other than working in a DAW, having to use a AD to DA converter, like a hard, whatever the case. If you want to go that route, I would definitely look in that. But the Izzy Radar hard disk recorder is probably one of the best out there, but they can be extreme. I mean, we're talking $5, $6, $7,000, but there are a lot of top-notch studios that still use Radar. And with that being said, the editing is a lot better, especially the latest is Radar, because they allow you to incorporate Pro Tools and DAWs like that to do the editing. A lot of those hard disk recorders you couldn't. Yeah, you can bounce because it's digital, so you can bounce. Like say you recorded on track 3 and you want to move it to 12 or whatever. Yes, you can do that. You just got to go through the menu system to do it. But as far as the editing that you could do in a DAW, hard disk recorders just can't do what Cakewalk or Pro Tools or Ableton Live or Reason or Studio One. They're not there. They don't have all the tools like a DAW. But as far as the sound quality, the AD to DA converters and Radar and these Elises and so forth are, yeah, they're really, really good. So let me see, man. I'm kind of anti-hard disk recording, and interfacing at DAW is so effortless these days. And I have both. That's why I have both. I still have ADATs. I have a hard disk recorder, and I also have multiple interfaces. I have different sources. I did a video where I did a video using just my ADATs. So it's more choice than that. You know, there are people that are still studios that will only use 2-inch tape machines. 2-inch tape machines with an analog console and outboard gear was the standard for some of the #1 records out there made in this, from the 70s, 80s, 90s. That was the standard. So is the sound quality going to be? No, you're going to have excellent sound quality with an analog console, 2-inch tape machine, outboard gear. And if you set up your studio that way, you're going to get the same results. The thing is, the tape machines, you're talking 15 or 30 frames per second, your FPS. You're not going to get you're only on 2-inch tape machines. You're only get about 15. You only get about 3-4 songs of tape. That's, and that's why they would have a 1/2-inch mastering tape. So you bring your 2 masters out from your console to the 1/2-inch to make your master. That's where the term masters came from in the first place, was the master track come from the 24 track. They cut it down to a master track, which was the final master. And that's why they say, that's why the record label own your masters. We own the masters, that different video. That's a different video on publishing and all that. But he said, let me see. Did you he said, did your love for music equipment affect your marriage? Or was it military? The military. No, she was 100% supporter of the. She was 100% of the more. Matter of fact, she bought me this Core Triton Studio. I think it was $3,000. That's what she would spend money on getting me music instruments. I'm gonna put it like this. I really was only probably 50% of being a husband. So it's not, so that's really part of that is my priorities. I mean, I was sitting there spending money on my Mustang. I was buying camshafts, cylinder heads, gears, all these parts. Even when I was married, my focus was not there. So I would not sit there and say it was all, a lot of times we married, we want to blame the other one. No, I was part of the problem too. And it said, he said, or the woman. I'm like, it says, thank you much. I appreciate that. So yeah. So the military, because I was deployed, I was gone. We only had probably I would say technically on paper we were married for 19 years, but we only had 6 years of solid time together. That's crazy, isn't it? it is what it is. So we really just, you know, she made some mistakes. I made mistakes. That's just, you know. So let me see. Anyhow, oh, he says, because I'm about to end the video because it has been over an hour and a half. But I'm gonna end the video. Says because I didn't realize it was 10. Wow. But I did get started late. But anyhow, he says, sorry, I'm not understanding what you mean by track count, easy to bouncing tracks. In other words, when you want to bounce a track, let's say you record on track, let's say that 24 track tape, and let's say you recorded 12 tracks, 3 or 4 tracks, drums, bass on 5, keys on 6 and 7, guitar on 8, 9, maybe 10, 11, 12 is vocals. Let's say you want to move vocals 10, 11, 12 to tracks 17, 18, 19, because you want to make more, you want to do some other stuff, put some more instruments or overdubs on those tracks. You can copy that track from 10, 11, and 12 to 17, 18, 19 by copying those tracks. In other words, we're bouncing the tracks. We're just moving the tracks. So that's kind of like, in layman terms, bouncing the track. I'm just going to bounce it from here to there. If that makes more sense. So now, what Man Network was saying about the ease of use in the DAW is, unlike in a hard disk recorder where you got to go to the menu, you got to take that track, highlight it, copy it. Then you got to take the other track, copy it. Then you got to copy it to track. And then a lot of times the machine got to run through it. In a DAW, all you got to do is highlight the track and then take your mouse and drag it and move it from 7 to like 10. I got to drag it to 10. Now it's on 10 and it's done. That's the what makes it, why DAWs become the reason why a DAW is just the most preferred method is simply because it's the editing. It's the big, you're able to edit with ease, and you can, and a lot of times, most of the editing is non-destructive. I mean, there's the most destructive editing was tape machines. They would literally, and the machine would have slots for you to take a razor blade to cut slots on a tape. That's destructive editing, because once you cut it, you can't uncut it. You got to get it right the first time. And so yeah, here's another bad. Yeah, here's a good way to explain it too. He's right on a high track count for easy recording, and bouncing is for saving space and fitting more music or available tracks. Google bouncing on track. In other words, that's another way to explain it too. Like, let's say, you had 20 tracks and you need to make room. You might take all your drum tracks and save them to make them a 2-track stereo, bounce them down into 2 tracks and put those in 1 and 2 to make room for more. You had to do a lot more of that in hard disk recorders or tape machines. You had to make more space because you had so many tracks. But in a DAW, why am I doing that when I can just add more tracks? You can add as many tracks as your hard disk and your computer processor can handle. And so you can have 50 tracks in your DAW. You can't really do that with tape machine. So that's why we said we bounce tracks. We're going to move tracks around, try to make space. You're trying to make space. So other than that, I've been on here for a while. I really do like doing these live. I think people like the live streams because you could interact. So that's why I want to start doing these more. And with the free time, it allows me to do this more. So I really want to do this more, but it's going on 10:30, and I don't know if Taco Bell is still open or not. Do I need Taco Bell this late? No, I don't. No, I don't. I better go find something simple. Okay, let me see. So, oh, he said, so if you had 8 tracks and recording just drums, you can bounce them down to a single stereo track, and now you have several. Yeah, that's what I just explained. So, um, so basically, that's going to do it. I need to get off of here. Um, I really do appreciate everyone tuning in, everyone that tuned in, and well, I'll continue to do these live streams. Um, so and I really want to thank everyone for tuning in, and I wish everyone have a good night. And thanks for supporting the channel. Everyone that supports the channel, I really appreciate y'all. And that's gonna do it. Y'all have a great one.